All right, that top story, U.S. President Donald Trump paid only $750 in federal income tax, both in 2016 and 17, and he didn't pay taxes at all for 10 years. That's according to the New York Times, which says it obtained tax records for Trump and his companies over 2 decades. The newspaper has reported that Trump, who is seeking re-election in November, also paid no income taxes in 10 of the last 15 years, despite receiving over $427 million from his reality television program and endorsements and licensing deals. Trump was apparently able to minimize his tax bill by reporting heavy losses across his business empire. The Times reported that the U.S. president claimed $47 million in losses in 2018, despite claiming income of $435 million in a financial disclosure that year. Trump has denied the report, calling it total fake news, but has consistently refused to release his tax reports, departing from standard practice for presidential candidates, saying that they are under audit. Well, to discuss, we're joined by SABC News correspondent in Washington, Nick Harper. Nick, thanks for being with us. So many rich people make losses across some of their businesses, and of course they try and pay as little tax as possible. But this paints such a different picture of his finances than Trump has painted himself, doesn't it?
That's right, Francis. I mean, he has, for many years, 5 or so, tried to withhold his taxes from the American public. He said that he wasn't going to release them in the run-up to the election, and then when he became elected, he said that he also wasn't going to release them. And presidents dating back to the 1970s have traditionally released their taxes so that the American public, I guess, can see a level of transparency within the financial dealings of the person who wants to run the country. And yet he's kept them hidden. And here we have this devastating expose by the New York Times showing that not only has he not paid tax for many years over the last couple of decades, he also seems to be riddled with debt, millions of dollars worth in debt. So yes, it is not unusual for people who earn a lot of money to look at creative ways to perhaps avoid paying some level of tax. Yeah. But to hear that the President of the United States in the year that he was elected and the year after that only paid $750 in federal tax for the entire year is something that's quite incredible and will undoubtedly shock many American voters out there.
And even more troublesome for him would be the speculation that he was reporting losses to minimize his tax, but maybe presenting a different picture to people he was lending money from, or people he was talking about his businesses to. Is there any evidence yet of fraud or anything like that?
No, nothing exactly along those lines, but of course these details will be pored over by investigators across the United States, in particular in New York City, where for several years the Attorney General of New York City has been trying to get the tax records of Donald Trump to be released, alleging that there is some sort of fraud in his past that needs investigating. We've also been hearing from the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, a Democrat, who is saying that all of this presents a national security issue, because she says, look, the president is in debt to the tune of about $400 million. She wants to know exactly who he owes money to and whether any of the people that he owes money to are foreign parties. Therefore, could they claim any leverage on the US president to try and get some sort of deal or some sort of favour from him? She's saying that that needs to be looked at very closely, and it's a line of investigation she says investigators should now follow.
All right, the president himself says it's fake news. What's he saying about it? How is he explaining this all away?
Yeah, he's responded a couple of times on this. He was holding a press conference on Sunday evening, about 15 minutes after this news came out. When he was asked questions about it, he said it was totally fake news. He said, I paid tax. He said the IRS, which is the Inland Revenue Service here in the US that collects that federal tax, they don't treat me well, he said. They treat me very badly. He's been tweeting about the topic today as well, saying that he paid millions of dollars in taxes, but was entitled, he says, like everyone else, to depreciation and tax credits, referring to some of those write-off that he's tried to claim, including $70,000 one year for hairstyling. Also, revelation showing that as well as paying a salary to his daughter Ivanka Trump, she was also claiming consultancy fees to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. So he's saying it's totally fake news. He's tried to dismiss it. He hasn't given it really any credibility.
Sure. Nick, so this also comes just a day or so before the first debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. He's had a lot to say about Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, saying he needs a drug test. But does this open the president up, do you think, to an attack when that debate happens tomorrow night?
Well, it certainly does. I think Democrats will be looking at this and saying that this is an absolute gift, coming as it does on the eve of that first presidential debate, for Joe Biden to be able to go after President Trump and his record on paying taxes. I'm sure we will hear that number, 750, many times during the course of the debate and over the next 36 days until the election on November the 3rd. The Democrats are going to want to hammer that one home. But of course, the big question is, will it really matter for the voters out there? The hardcore Republican base may look at this and think, well, look, if the president can get away with it, good for him. I would like to be able to do the same. And they may be unwavering in their support. The Democrats will therefore be hoping that Joe Biden can have a strong debate, that he can hammer the president on this point. And there may be some undecided voters out there looking at this, thinking that what the president has done, not paying tax, certainly not paying enough, is reason not to vote for him in just a few weeks' time.
Finally, Nick, like you say, many minds are made up, sort of hardened positions in the US. But what is the expectation in the run-up to that debate? Many said that it may be hard for Biden to debate Trump, actually. Are there bets on this? And tell us about the rules of engagement, how it'll all work.
Well, Donald Trump has certainly shown himself to be a very strong debater. He's very good with off-the-cuff comments. He is able to attack his opponents and undermine them. Joe Biden has struggled in that respect. We've seen him in the Democrat debates earlier this year, really struggling against some of his opponents. So there will be that fear from the Democrats. There's also the idea of facts as well. Although Donald Trump speaks a lot, there are often many questions about whether or not he is telling the truth. And it will therefore be up to Joe Biden to see if he is able to fact-check the president in real time, something which will be very difficult. It's something that he will have to go up against. There'll be fact-checkers, of course, after the debate ends, but it'll be up to Mr. Biden to somehow try and hold the president to account if he comes up with some of those falsehoods that we've seen him rely on in the past.
Yeah, well, millions around the world, including in South Africa, in the early hours of the morning. We'll be watching that. Thank you so much for the update. That was SABC News correspondent in Washington, Nick Harper.